Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our final event for CUNYAC SAAC, the Career Fair Q&A panel. My name is Julia Catone. I'm the president for CUNYAC SAAC. With us today, we have three Baruch College student-athlete alumni who have went on to accomplish many great things. First, we have Brian Nunez, then we have Yulia Lavrentieva, and last but not least, we have Yi Chung Feng. Each panelist will give a response to each question we have for today. Helping moderate this event with me, we have two fellow eBoard members, Emily Cabrera and Vina Karupin. So starting with Brian, why don't you each tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got into your current company, what your company does, and what you studied at Baruch College.
All right. So, hi, everybody. My name is Brian. Um, Brian Nunez. My company's name is We Capture Media. I started it about a year ago, a year and a half ago. And it's a media company that basically helps entrepreneurs, small businesses to create meaningful content that will help them with their business, help them generate more patients or leads or customers, and ultimately generate them more money or income. And I graduated in 2018. I got my major in entrepreneurship management, and I played soccer uh, for from 2016 to 2018, so for 3 years, and we won the CUNYAC my last year. So, woo, yeah, that's my spiel.
Okay, it sounds like I'm next. Hi, everybody. My name is Yulia. I work as a lead auditor at Chicago Mercantile Exchange, short for CME Group. My company is we are the world's largest financial derivatives exchange, and we are in different asset classes. And it's really agricultural products, currencies, energy, interest rates, cryptocurrencies, futures. We offer trading platforms, and based on the product, there are different trading platforms. I went to Baruch College and I majored in finance and I did a minor in psychology. I was on the swim team for all 4 years, and then I ran cross country for 1 year as well.
Cool. Hey everyone, same like Yulia, I graduated from Baruch in 2019, was also in the swim team, captain for the last 2 years, and I currently work at McCann Health as a strategist. And McCann Health is essentially a global creative advertising agency that is dedicated to finding core truths to helping health and wellness brands come to creative solutions. So our global offerings span across strategic consulting, healthcare, marketing, medcoms, and specialty practices like payer and patient engagement.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian Flannery, Baruch baseball alumni here, and thank you so much for thanking me for this opportunity. I sincerely extend my apologies for being unable to attend the live event, but I'm really happy and eager to share some career insights with the group, even if I'm not able to do it at the same time as the rest of my talented panelists. So with that, first, I'd just really like to thank Zach and the entire CUNYAC staff again for thinking of me for this opportunity. Anytime I get that email, just know that I am always here as a proud alumni and always just very eager and honored to be able to kind of pass down some of the things I've learned even over the past few short years to my fellow CUNYAC student athletes. So with that, I will go into a few of the talking points here. First and foremost, again, my name is Brian Flannery. I am the Public Relations Coordinator for the New York Liberty of the WNBA. We are one of the 3 remaining original franchises in the W. And basically with that and what that looks like, I'm essentially the SID or Sports Information Director at the collegiate level for the New York Liberty. And that looks a little bit differently on the professional level in the sense that there's travel, there's media relations, naturally, it's a little bit bigger of a spectacle. So of course, it's kind of more of an all hands on deck operation, but very similar to the SID role. So that's usually what I like to use as a comparison, because if you've gone through collegiate athletics and competed in the CUNYAC, you definitely know who your SID is. So
can you share what day-to-day responsibilities you guys have and the main projects you are involved in or oversee, if any, you're involved in?
All right. So at WeCapture, as the owner and founder, my day to day is a wide variety of things, but the main things have to do with overlooking all the general projects that we have, right? We work with a lot of different clients, right? Because video production is a wide range right now. So, and so is entrepreneurs and small businesses. So, I help real estate agents, I help dental offices, I've helped even a nail salon, a couple other companies as well. But it's making sure that there's quality control, right? Making sure that um, tasks are being done. We're meeting deadlines, also making sure that not only that the client is happy, but also the editors are on track to finish on time, making sure that they have all of their questions answered, all of the elements, all of that stuff. So it's kind of just making sure that all of the components are in place. And I think that's everything. I'm not sure if I'm missing a part, but that's how my day to day goes.
So in audit, your day-to-day, a lot of the times, is never the same. So the basic structure of audit is you have a company and there's different business lines within a company. And as part of the annual plan, the management, they'll decide which areas do we want to audit. Audit has three main stages to it. There's the planning, field work, and then there's a reporting section. Depending on the nature of the company, so for example, for me, I could have multiple audits that I lead at the same time, and they could be all in different stages. And that's why my day-to-day is really never the same. Now, as part of the planning stage, that's really where you come in and you talk to different business lines and you figure out what they do, what their processes are. And that's like where you get to know things. As part of field work, that's where you come in and you do a lot of the testing. So is everything that the business told us in the planning phase, does it work? Is it operating effectively? Is it designed effectively? And then in the reporting stage, you basically gather all of your results as part of the planning phase, planning and fieldwork phase, and then you report on it. So you give a rating to every finding if there's a finding, and then you also give a rating to the overall report. And part of that is communication with the business and making sure that we as auditors are actually saying things that are factually correct and that everybody agrees on the language, and then you publish the report. So day to day is never the same. I think it's similar to Brian, where you kind of wear a lot of hats.
Cool. In advertising, if you guys have any knowledge of advertising, it's super fast paced. So same as Yulia, same as Brian, every day could be different. The pace changes constantly and you have to be very quick on your feet. And so my overarching responsibility is to ask the tough questions and research digging to help provide creatives with impactful insights that can actually drive a campaign that may be creating for any disease or brand that we're in. So my day-to-day can vary from actually developing the initial strategy, doing primary, secondary research, evaluating market trends and case studies, to just maintaining a strategy with a brand and making sure that all creative pieces that are being developed are staying true to strategy, true to the brand story. A lot of my day-to-day also consists of kind of just scanning through the news, making sure I'm keeping in check with any updates that may be coming out on a brand, disease, any policy updates. And a lot of the work in advertising manages collaboration. So I'm constantly working with a social sciences team where they study human society and social relationships and see how we can implement this into our business practices. And then just collaborating with medical teams, account teams, creatives, and you'll see that the best ad agencies are really the ones that know how to collaborate with each other. And so that's a huge part of what I do every day. Some of the disease states that I've worked on is major depressive disorder, schizophrenia, renal disease, and cardiovascular.
As far as day-to-day responsibilities with Liberty, I touched upon it a little bit earlier, but really when it comes down to it, there's the SID side, which is all the stats, the game notes, the media guides, really the basketball specific parts of the team and what that looks like. So it gets pretty granular on that side, and that's why I call it the SID side, because it really is all encompassing as far as what it takes to even put on a game and the box scores and the stats. And so that's that side. And then I'd say the really other second main side of my job as a PR coordinator is media relations. And what that looks like is working directly with the players, whether we're actively pitching or proactively booking TV appearances. But then on a more day-to-day level and more of a routine, it's working with our local and national media to really accommodate player availabilities, lead those press conferences, set them up, make sure media has everything they need, as well as the players. So that's a huge part of what I do, and that's really what coincides with the professional level, because we do have that level of coverage and beat writers. So for us, that's a huge part of what I do, and it's really important, especially on the WNBA side, as we look to grow coverage year by year. And we are seeing an increase, but we still got a ways to go. So that is my day-to-day responsibility.
Do you see yourself staying in this field, or do you wish to expand or grow moving forward in your life? How do you know when to settle in your career?
So addressing that first part, I would love to expand in the field that I'm in. I think video production right now is the main consumption of content as we speak, right? We started off with newspapers, radio, TV. Then we started seeing stuff like MySpace, Facebook, Instagram, and Instagram was kind of when things started to change. Instagram was mainly for photos in the beginning. Then it quickly transitioned into videos, and now we have platforms such as TikTok that is video consumption as fast as possible, right? Originally it was just 15 seconds long, and I think there was some update now that you can actually do up to 3 minutes, but it's a lot easier to consume video content, right? That's also why YouTube is so big, right? So I would love to expand in this realm, right? And I see one day virtual reality becoming a thing. So if somehow we capture media, maybe 5 years from now turns into can adapt to virtual reality or AR, I think that would be a good way to go as well. Just because it's always good to adapt to trends, right? That's how you stay relevant. That's how you stay afloat. So um, now, how do you know when to settle? I honestly cannot answer that question because I haven't reached that point yet, but I feel like it would be a gut feeling when you know when it's time to settle.
So the beauty of audit is that it's always changing, and you can audit one business line today and then come back a year from now, and there could be different regulations and there could be different policies, and you could be looking at different aspects of the business. So because it's always changing, I'm always learning in the field that I'm in, and I get a very good bird's eye view over the entire company. So I definitely see myself staying in audit and just progressing in the field of audit, because there's different types of audit that you can do. There's financial, where you really work with the numbers. There's operational audit. There's fraud audit. There's ethics, HR, and the list goes on. There's compliance. So I definitely see myself staying here and learning more and more and just growing within my profession. Now, in terms of how do you know when you settle, I tend to agree with Brian, is that it's probably a feeling that you reach, but it's different for everybody. There could be different life priorities. There could be different things that are going on. If it's settling in your role, maybe there's a ceiling that you want to get to. Maybe it's a specific role that you say, hey, I want to get to here, and then I want to stay at that position. I also do think that changes as you go on with your career, because you may start out with one goal in mind, and you may say, maybe that maybe you change industries, or maybe you want to, grow in a different direction, or there could be life events that happen. So I think that's a question that everybody has to ask themselves, but there's no set real answer as to like, when do I really know where I want to settle?
Yeah, I think Yulia and Brian captured that incredibly well. I agree with that too. It's like, I don't know if settling is the correct word, but it's more like in the moment, if you're happy with what you're doing, you feel like you're being challenged and being better and doing better, I think is just a good sign that you're on the right track. And then as you progress, you encounter other factors that are going on in your life. So definitely. And I mean, any Brook person here knows like never settle, like we're always striving to be better. So I think that same applies to your career. In terms of staying in my field, I am incredibly grateful that I found a position that I'm so passionate about. In terms of what I do, it equally aligns with what I'm passionate about. Advocating for global health equity fulfills my desire to continuously be learning every single day. As a strategist, my role is to be curious, is to continually want to learn. So in the health realm, you're never done learning. You know that like you're never satisfied because you know that you can't know everything. So really like being in this field is something that I see myself staying in for the long run.
As far as looking ahead, I definitely see myself staying in sports. That's all I've ever wanted to do, and I'm blessed and fortunate enough to have broken into the industry and been here for a few years now on a full-time basis. So to answer that question, no, I don't plan on leaving the field, and this is something that I really believe is my future. And you see the next steps and the ability for upward advancement throughout the career. So love sports, love the how dynamic it is, how every day is a little bit different. You always got to stay on your toes, that competitive environment, and just being part of a team. So for me, sports is the way to go. That's all I really know, and that's all I really want to know from an organization standpoint.
That's great. At what age did you realize the career you wanted to pursue, and how was that made clear for you?
So for me, I want to say around 22, 23. It was actually after I graduated. So I always knew I wanted to do something in management. I just didn't know what. I knew management was a big overall. It's very generalized, right? Even McDonald's needs a general manager, right? So, um, but it actually came from my family. So my family has a dental office in Queens, and that was all that I knew when I was a little kid. That was my summer job. Even when I was younger, after school, that's where I would be. And then as college came around, it started to become a part time. So I was balancing school, the part time job, and also the soccer team when we were in season. Um, but what pushed me to pursue videography, video production, we capture media, was actually the hard part of being a part of a family practice or family business, right? It's not easy working with family at all, no matter how much you love each other. The line between work and family, once you blur it, it's hard to go back, right? You can, it's hard to have a tough meeting with a family member and then go home for dinner and then be a-okay or totally forget about it, right? So um, I eventually left. um, my father actually fired me, which is pretty funny, but I thank him now, because if it wasn't for that, I wouldn't be where I am now, right? So um, all I knew at that point was that I had a passion, or at the beginning, it was kind of like a strong hobby, something I wanted to pursue, but pushing me over that ledge, it allowed me to just go full blown 100%, right? So that's kind of how I realized. And once I started doing it, I realized that every business, every entrepreneur, anybody in general who wants to have some sort of brand needs good marketing, advertising, and just good videos, right? Or good content, right? So for example, I'm helping a real estate guy out that I met, and he's really, really good at what he does. He's the number one agent in his agency, and he's only been doing it for 3 years. But um, we talked about it, and after a month, he wanted to do a course. He wants to create a course so that he can teach other real estate agents around the U.S. What he knows. So he's not a real estate agent that's been in the game 50 years, somebody that just started, from year three. But one thing I explained to him was you can teach everybody who's an aspiring real estate agent, a real estate agent who's in year one, a real estate who's in two, right? So you can teach everybody else that hasn't gone to your, that's not up to you. So, but to wrap it up, it's just my, I figured it out after college. So I know sometimes people get to college and they don't know what they want to do, or even when they're in college, they still don't know what they want to do. So it eventually will come. I figured it out.
I think for me, it was probably when I was about 24. I worked for a financial institution briefly, and then I worked at a consulting company. And in the consulting company, like I kind of got a feel for the legal aspect in the financial institution, and then I got a feel for accounting, like real accounting, where you sit down, you do journal entries, you do monthly postings, you reconcile everything, as well as a little bit of internal audit there. And moving into my prior role at Citi, I went into internal audit because I knew that one, it's ever changing and you are always doing something new. You're always working on a new audit, and the people that you're working with are also changing. So your stakeholders, your auditees, they're sometimes the same, but they're sometimes different. And I think that that's when I knew, when I got a little bit of experience and when I got to understand what avenues are available to me, I decided on audit, and I've been in audit ever since.
I probably came to a realization about a year and a half ago, probably like a few months into my first full-time job out of college. Um, Definitely to say I probably thought I was going to be an Olympic swimmer or go into architecture, and it went from all of that to not knowing throughout my years in college. And all that to say, like, no matter when or how old you are when you figure that out, it is okay. It all comes to everyone at a different pace. So my first job out of college actually was already in advertising, just as a different department. And from my experience there, I got two key takeaways that I was able to really reflect on what I wanted. And it was like, one, anyone who said that healthcare advertising was boring was wrong. And that two, experiencing what I didn't want helped me find what I do want. So it was truthfully quite a journey for me to make that transition happen. But I was lucky, I was already in the industry. I had people that I was able to reach out to, ask them questions about what they did, what they were passionate about. And all of that helped me confirm that my aspirations were aligned, and then was confirmed when I actually got the job and fell in love with what I do.
In terms of what age I realized what career I wanted to pursue, I'd say industry wise, I had it right from the jump in the sense that I've always wanted to work in sports. So that part's great. But it was a matter of really figuring out where I fit in that larger scheme within sports. So I'd say right around my senior year, I was trying to narrow in whether I was either thinking about law school or maybe really pursuing this corporate communications background. I was building up a lot of not only education, but experience in working at Baruch Athletics. So with that, I'd say right around my senior year, about 21 years old, is when I realized that I had a future in PR. It was just a matter of putting together an actual plan to really kind of make that a reality, in which I was fortunate enough to be able to do so. So yeah, I'd say senior year, which is a little late, but better late than never.
That's great to hear, guys. It's actually a great question because, many people are scared to even go to college without knowing what they want to do in the future and stuff like that. And, it's good to let them know, like, it's good to go throughout the journey, but you will eventually find out, in the end. But our next question is, What are some other career goals you wish to accomplish that you have not accomplished yet?
So for me, one career goal is I like a lot of docu-series, right? So, and specifically sports ones. There's some good ones on Amazon Prime, and they're all soccer related. So, but one career goal or like something on a bucket list would be part of some sort of Netflix sports documentary, specifically soccer, right? Because that's the sport I'm most passionate about. But that's one, and the other, honestly, is just doing something that'll help a lot of people, right? So I'm a general believer that the more people you help, the more money you can generate, right? It's not all about the money, right? When you make it all about the money, that's kind of where you lose, right? It's for me, it's kind of like the more people you could help or bring general knowledge or information or anything, I feel like that's where the money will come from. It will come as a, like, I don't know the word, I guess like a benefit or as a side. I'm trying to think of the word, like a side benefit or something, like it's better to help people than just to only care about the money, at least for me. So something along those lines that will help a mass amount of people.
I think for me, one big aspect, and it's actually more educational, I do want to go for an MBA in accounting, and I do want to get my CPA, which is the Certified Public Accountant license. Even though I don't do accounting as part of my day-to-day job, the principles and as part of CPA audit is one of the sections there in the exam, but it gives you more perspective and it gives you a bigger view. So those two are, I guess, more educational, but they still apply to my career. But then also just progressing within my organization.
For me, like having just started out, there is still so much for me to learn, and I'm fortunate enough to like be able to have mentors within my organization that help me set out more immediate goals that I have in my current position. But then looking long term, it's like I'd love to take my skills globally, especially being at an agency that is global, like becoming a key player in holding an organization like this together would be incredible. An educational one for me too is like diving deeper into social sciences. It's an evaluation for me, truthfully, to see whether I do it or not, just because I already learned so much on the job and getting another degree would be amazing. But I'm sure if anyone comes to this point in their life, it's always a decision where you have to evaluate where you are and what you want to achieve there. But outside of healthcare, I'm always drawn to also making deeper connections with people and helping. So that's why, like with my athletic background, I created the Brook Athletic Alumni Network over the summer, just so that I can also continue doing what I loved and giving back to the community that I came from. So as long as I'm continuing to help people and rise up and reach back, that's my goal.
As far as other career goals, one that was on the top of my list was also obtaining my master's degree, which I was able to do in basically 1 year's time after I graduated Baruch. I ended up going to a different institution for that based on a program offering in sport management, but that's something that I'm proud to have crossed off my list at a young age too. And while I was still in that school mode, I didn't want to take too much of a gap. So graduate school, got my master's of science in sport management this past winter. So really excited about that. And then just as far as more closer goals, just continuing to grow and learn every day. I feel like I'm not the same person I was just 2 years ago when I started out, but I also know 2 years from now I won't be the same person in the sense of all that experience and really just everything you learn along the way. So I'm excited for the growth and the development that's to come. And I hope as I continue to do these events with CUNY and Baruch that I just have more and more to offer every year. Because it's one of those businesses on the sports side that once you get in and you're going at it full speed, you really do learn along the way. And if you're fortunate enough to have some really good supervisors around you like I am, they'll stop to teach you. And so eventually one day you can really realize your full potential within the industry, whatever that looks like. So I've been very fortunate in that regard. And yeah, just going to continue to grow and develop as not only someone in sports management, but specifically on the public relations side.
That's so great to hear. So, the next question would be, what was the biggest transition issue you faced when finishing college, with the pressure of getting a job and that aspect?
So for me, I was throughout college, I was more set on um, working for the family business after, most likely doing some HR, doing management as well, being more upper management. So I didn't really have that issue in the beginning or the issue of trying to find that job. I already had one. Um, and also being in a management major, entrepreneurship management major, it wasn't required to have an internship. So I had a couple of my teammates, a couple of people that I knew that were always stressed because they were trying to get internships. And even once they got the internship, it wasn't enough because everybody was fighting for that job straight from college or right out of college. So, but kind of adapting that question to being fired from the family business to starting my business, um, a major thing that I faced was trying to make this a full-time job was very difficult because I was a hobbyist at that moment, and I didn't have the equipment that met the standard of my industry, right? So I had a very simple camera that wasn't anything that was shot like 4K or anything like nice like that. It was more like, hey, there's this little Nikon camera that I got that would be great to take some pictures and some clips on vacation. So I had to really fake it till I make it. So networked my butt off, made sure I spoke to everybody, make sure to build the connections and get these gigs. And I had to sacrifice income to bring up the quality of my service. So I had two or three people that I knew that were much better than I was, and I had to um, hire them onto the team so that they could help me film these projects or these gigs, right? Because they did have the equipment. So I had to talk for a long time. I had to speak as if, oh yeah, these guys are my employees. This is my team. We're like really well equipped, and we gave really good services. But in the back of my mind, I was the one out of all of them that was the least prepared, or I was just faking it until I could save up enough money to get the equipment that I needed and everything that I needed. And now I'm a lot better off. Everything is up to date, and all of the content I learned along the way, all of the stuff that I did, helped me now. So it was a hard first year for me, but that was kind of the what is it? Sorry, the word. The biggest issue I faced.
I think for me, I didn't have too much of a transition period because senior year, I held an internship and I was going in full time 3 days a week. And then I was taking classes like probably 8 to 10 p.m. For the other 2 days. So in terms of transitioning to the work life and the work world, I didn't face too much of a transition kind of, or any challenges there. What I remember having to work through a lot were interviews, because like Brian said, my field was extremely competitive, and you do get really stressed and you have to find a job. And sitting down and working through questions and thinking of scenarios and how are you going to respond. Like, I remember spending 4 hours prepping for one interview, writing everything out, thinking of what they can ask me, doing the research on the company, and tailoring each interview and like all of my prep and making sure that it was very pointed and I like knew the people, did my research, everything. I think that was a challenge that I faced because in a competitive world, you do have to step up, and the interview is the only time that you get with that company. So how you present yourself really matters. But you do a lot of research. You make sure you talk to the right people. Thankfully, my manager at my internship, as well as other people at my internship at the time, were willing to sit down with me and coach me through a lot of that stuff. So I got very lucky in that sense, is that people definitely put in their time into helping me, and that's what it definitely contributed to my success.
I just want to say kudos to the both of you for going through all that and being where you guys are now. I think you guys are both so accomplished, so that's amazing. Um, for me, my biggest transition was a more personal aspect to it. As a student athlete, I'm sure most of you can relate. When you are in college and you're representing this team, you devote so much of your time and your heart into training for your team, winning a championship. And for me, when that ended, it was quite a shock for me, I guess. It was almost a loss of identity for myself, just because I had known myself for the last how many years I've been swimming as the girl who swam, the girl who was part of the swim team. And when that ended, it was really just a reevaluation of who I am, what I want to accomplish. So that was my biggest issue that I had to go through, but which is exactly why I hope that a network like the Brook Alum Network can help people that are going through that, just because I know it really takes a toll on your mental, physical. And so, yeah, that's what I went through. But fortunately, I was always surrounded by people that were very supportive, knew that I was still finding my way. And luckily now I'm supported by people that they might not be my swim teammates, but they are also teammates in my heart who are always supporting me and inspiring me to do better. So, yeah.
So I'd say the biggest transition issue I faced when finishing college was pretty simply I didn't have a job. And it's kind of tough when you see some of your friends and of course super happy for them, but the reality kicks in and it's like, wow, like they have their job offer lined up. Like I don't, and it's time to really focus in and ultimately get the right offer. So with that, a story I like to tell is graduation pre-pandemic, of course, naturally at Barclays Center, and just kind of sitting there and everything hits you when the confetti comes down. It's a great moment. It's a celebration of 4 years, but at the same time, that reality kind of kicks in. It's like this is the real world now. So with that, I just remember some of the stress that came along with that. However, the cool part of the story is as I was sitting there kind of worried about next steps, fast forward the tapes just a year and a half, 2 years, and Barclays Center is where I work today with the New York Liberty, and I'm proud to have an office in there. So total full circle moment. Love telling that story in the sense of it's okay to not have everything figured out come graduation day. Just what I'd really encourage everyone to do is just continue to actively build experience, gain just access to different opportunities, and continue to build your network. It's a never ending process, especially within sports. So that's uh that's a issue that I overcame post graduation.
Sometimes it is our biggest challenges that just bring out the best in us and show us where we're meant to be. So, with that being said, do you have any general tips for current student athletes exploring careers within your industries?
Um, I have two tips. One is brand yourself well, and second of all is network your ass off, right? Talk to every event. I mean, it's a little weird now because of COVID and the pandemic, but every Zoom network you join, um, try to meet people everywhere you go, every group, try to meet people, have a small conversation, find something that you can relate to them with, maybe whether how big or small, right? But just leave a good impression on everybody that you meet, that you think it's worth your time, right? I know there's a lot of people that are just not good, right? There's another word I want to use, but I should not use it here, right? But because you never know, right? Like you meet a bunch of people, and maybe not now will it will anything happen, but maybe 5 years down the road, this person that you met at a meeting or a networking or just friends hanging out at a bar or something, they might need your assistance, you might need their assistance, right? One thing I learned was that this is a very, very small world, right? So what goes around comes around. And I think for me, that's one of the biggest talents or superpowers you could have is networking.
I don't think I can stress that enough. Honestly, when I was in college, I don't think I realized how critical networking is. I was not the person that liked it. I was not the person that liked going to these events and doing small talk. I was not good at it. And it took a lot out of me to get there and to actually start networking and to actually connect to people. But I don't think I can stress enough how important that is. Like, I do want to echo everything that Brian said, because this world is so small. I mean, audit world is tiny, but even in general, business world connections, it is so small. So keep in touch, like, with your networking group, because it's one thing to network and it's one thing to, I go to an event and I talk and then I follow up, but it's another thing to actually develop relationships. I mean, I still keep in touch with my manager from my internship, and like, we're friends. Like, yes, she was my manager at that time, and we had a professional relationship, but now she's one of my really good friends that I can turn to for advice, life advice, work advice, anything. And don't burn bridges. Like I think Brian said it, the world is tiny. So definitely don't burn the bridges. But don't be afraid to network. Don't be afraid to step out of that uncomfortable feeling. And I know that feeling all too well, because I've been there. I've been there where, hey, I don't know what I want to talk about, or I don't know how to start this conversation, but just put yourself into that uncomfortable feeling and it will fall into place. You will learn what to ask. There are resources out there. But yeah, that's definitely my biggest advice.
Totally aligned with all that. Same applies to the advertising industry. We're incredibly fast paced. Everyone knows each other. Every agency knows what's going on with the other one. So all of that also applies here. And to expand upon building connections with people, my biggest advice would just to say there are no wrong questions. Any question that you have, and you may be just figuring out what you want to ask, just ask them, because I think holding yourself back and thinking that you might say something you don't think is right will just hinder your own progress. So that would be my biggest advice. And like, if you see someone who does something you're interested in, don't be afraid to reach out. More often than not, people are more than happy to connect and help you as much as they can. So yeah, and especially in advertising, there are so many unique roles to fill, and it will take, if you're not in the industry yourself, you won't know what fits you best. So it's best to connect with people, see what they do, see how it aligns with what you want to do, and then you'll figure it out from there.
And lastly, just finishing up on general tips for my industry. Again, just doing a few of these events in the past, my biggest advice to anyone looking to break into the sports industry is figure out what you bring to the table. Not just, hey, I want to work in sports, because a lot of people want to work in sports. It's really competitive, and naturally there's a lot of perks that goes with it. However, what I encourage you to do is, whether you have a background in marketing or you're a really good conversationalist and good at building relationships, then maybe you're geared up for the sales side. But really just kind of hone in on what your greatest strengths and background is, and figure out exactly how you'll break into the sports industry, not just kind of generally trying to go about it, because that's what made the difference for me, in the sense that I had a background in corporate communications. I knew my strength laid on the PR side, and that's exactly how I was able to break in. So I'd encourage anyone watching this who wants to work in sports, again, just really, really take some time and just evaluate. A little bit of self-evaluation is required. And then from there, if you realize what path you want to pursue within sports, and there is a ton of different paths you can take it. So don't be afraid to try one and then maybe pivot to another, but really figure out how you can add value to an organization. And that's my best advice for breaking in to the industry and then hopefully having a long career after you're there.
I'm glad that you all touched upon like not being afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions, because sometimes that could be hard even for myself. So that's very great advice. Does anyone else on this call have any questions that they would like to ask the panelists before we conclude? I guess while we're waiting too, if each of you could put your like email or LinkedIn in the chat, this way any student athletes could like connect with you after the event, that would be really helpful too.
Also, just to add, I know it's nerve-wracking to speak to new people, but the worst thing that could happen is just them saying no. That's it. It's just no, okay, fine, next person. That's it. They're not gonna affect your career. It's not gonna ruin your life. You know, it's the same thing with dating. Like you ask somebody, you talk to somebody. If they say no, then okay, that's fine. On to the next. That's it. It once you learn to be okay with rejection, it becomes so much simpler after that.
So with that, thank you again to the entire CUNYAC staff for thinking of me for this event. Continue to reach out with these opportunities, and I will do my best with our busy schedule to accommodate the best I can. But again, always an honor, a pleasure. And to Baruch and all my former and current student athletes there, just continue to hang in there. I know it's been a tough few years, but really looking forward to seeing you all compete once again. And that's going to be a beautiful day, not only on campus, but just all throughout New York City for the entire conference. So with that, thank you again. Roll Cats, stay Bearcat strong, and I hope to see you all very soon.
I just want to say thank you on behalf of CUNYAC SAAC. We just want to give each of you a big thank you for taking the time out of your day to be on this panelist career fair event. Your words of wisdoms are greatly appreciated. So I just want to thank you guys for coming.
Yes, thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
Happy to help out anyone. Please reach out. Like, this is where it starts, right? You talk to people within your own community who came from where you've been. So don't hesitate to reach out, ask us questions, and hope you guys all do well.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Goodbye, everyone.
Safe.
Bye, guys.